Good afternoon. Welcome to episode number 4. We've done this for 3 weeks in a row, and I think we have another wonderful guest waiting in the wings. Usha Krishnamurthy is a counseling psychologist. But before we get to her, a few announcements. One is that please put in all your comments on the YouTube stream, because if you put them on Facebook or LinkedIn, they don't show up here. If you'd like your comments to be featured during the live stream, that is, we will definitely take questions that come in on the YouTube live stream. Okay. So let me get Usha on board. She's had an amazing journey, and it started off in the temple town of Varanasi. Welcome,
Hi, Venu.
Usha. Great to have you
Hi.
on board.
Yeah, great to
And
be here. Yeah.
okay, okay. So one of the things, rather than start counseling psychologists, do you end up meeting a fair number of young people?
Oh, yes. I do get asked, what is the usual age group that, your clientele? So I would say that it's pretty much spans all ages, but the young crowd, say about between 18 to 30, do consist of a lot of my
Okay,
clients.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And are their careers part of the, you know, areas of confusion, things that they want clarity on?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
So work-life balance is pretty much something that we are constantly discussing. I think that's always, that is going to be a challenge for some time. We had COVID recently, and that upset everything. And then now the transition from post-COVID to, supposedly normal is challenging as well. So I think this work-life balance, this word is used a lot, but I think rightfully so.
okay, okay. So why don't we start with where you began? Because in the temple, Varanasi is where you took up your first job. Why don't you tell me a little more about your childhood and how things came to be, how you viewed a job and how it has evolved in your mind?
So I feel like such an imposter. Can I tell you very honestly at the outset that you invited me for a podcast like this? Because I would have never associated myself as somebody with a job or a career in that sense, right? Because it's only when I was being asked to list out what all I've done that I said, okay, you know what? I have done some varied stuff. Growing up, I think the accent was on academics, and I was definitely above average student studying in Secunderabad, and I was a commerce graduate. And I don't remember being that person who had these ideas about how I wanted my life to be, or there was no clear-cut idea that I want to be a doctor or an engineer. I think I just went along with the flow. I don't think it's changed that much now, but so at that time, teaching was something that did appeal to me, and I had thought that what, probably BEd is something that I could do. So when it happened that my dad being in the railways, we have traveled all over the country, and Banaras incidentally was where I was born. So when
Okay.
we went back for the second stint, this was about in '89. That's when I joined the school. I got a chance to work in a convent there, and you must understand that I hadn't done my BEd. I was just, I was I'd applied for it, but the school administration was kind enough to take me on. So I think I worked there for about 1.5 years. And I had promised the principal that I would send him my BA degree when I did it. And I, my memories of that school stint or the first time, I was very young. So every time the principal would call the teachers, right, for a meeting to the office or something, I remember, oh my God, I would be like, why am I being called to the principal's office? And then I would have to gently remind myself that, hey, you know what? You're the teacher, you call the shots. So
The youngest
uh,
person in the room.
I pretty much was one of the youngest teachers there because I joined when I was, I mean, I think I started when I was in uh, 21 or 20. So I was pretty young, but I think that's what really helped because all my students, I was teaching the 11th and 12th, and they were all pretty much, they were not much younger than me. And it just seemed like, okay, I could make something.
Okay.
So I did my B.Ed. I think I did it. I got my degree in June 91 and I got married end of the year. And um, I have to also, I mean, I think I can admit now, it used to be a source of a little embarrassment for me. I had also applied for my MCOM because I said, after BCom, MCOM would be a natural transition. And once I got married, I never went and completed that course. And it used to be, there were moments when I used to remind me, I used to be like, oh, I didn't finish that. And but then
Yeah.
being newly married, moving to Mumbai, I mean, everything was so new, and I was like, okay, this is something that I'm going to pay more attention to. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
then,
yeah,
obviously, immediately after marriage, it takes time to settle down. You're finding yourself in a new place. You're getting to know a new person. You're getting to know a new
yeah,
city. You're making a new set of friends. Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
so, how did the next sort of, I don't want to call it job, but how did you sort of navigate towards that second professional part of your life?
So I think, I mean, I have to say my husband did push me to, through one of his contacts, he got me a connect in Dower's Secretarial Institute. It was a very famous one in Mumbai. And they were looking for somebody to teach accounts because as a secretary, you're supposed to also know a little bit of accounting. And so it used to be a small group of 20 people to whom I would be teaching accounts. So that was very comfortable again. So it was not so intimidating. And having had that stint of teaching unruly students who never took me seriously, this was okay because these people were and through Davos, I got this opportunity to, it was an English speaking and etiquette. It was in Great Eastern Shipping, I remember. I had to go to this company and I would have to teach them how you would communicate and how, words of, vocabulary and pretty much is like, finishing school, but a
Finish.
little different. Yeah. So and these were all people who were working there and I always used to wonder that here I am just waltzing in saying that I can teach you, and these are all pretty senior people who've been probably having much longer careers than mine. And but the openness with which they welcomed me there and understood that I would be value adding to them, I think made that experience really nice. I mean, I think we would, I mean, I made some friends there. We would go out for coffee, and it was a very nice group. So at that time, I had I was applying in schools, and I had got a offer from a school called Manikji Cooper, which is again quite a
Yeah, yeah.
well-known school in
Heard of
Mumbai.
it. Yeah.
and I found out I was pregnant.
Okay.
Uh, so pretty much that became the most important
Absolutely.
event
Yeah.
for me, and I think I took to that. I mean, that was again. So if you could, that was my job for quite some time. So yeah, so that's so I had that little fun stint where I was on my own, and I used to travel quite a bit. So felt like a Mumbaikar because I was traveling by train from Bandra to Churchgate, and so it was again a very very fun experience for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in terms of accounts, were you, sort of preparing hard for classes, or it came to you fairly easily? You don't remember it as being a particularly, what do you say, routine kind of stint. The teaching part wasn't really difficult. It wasn't
Uh,
difficult, or
I would say that my fluence, I mean, I think I'm fluent in English. So I think that helped because it was easier to, explain or hold the class's attention. Um, I don't think I mean, I can't say I waltzed into class without reading up because remember that these were 11th and 12th standards who were very quick to, pull you
that's
down or call you out if you were, not really
yeah.
having, I mean, if you hadn't done your homework. So a certain amount of preparation did go in. And I felt very accountable to the administration, the principal. I mean, as I told you, I felt like I was a student, so I said, I have to do my job well, and uh, I think I was. I mean, I think the students liked me a lot because of the way I was teaching. So that did make me feel that I had it in me to be somebody who could teach in a class. I mean, as a profession or. Uh, but
So,
yeah, so
okay,
yeah,
accounts you can sort of prepare, but when it comes to things in a finishing school, or what you said, how did you approach that?
so I use the word finishing school. It was not that. It was just that I was
I mean,
interacting
I'm also
with a
saying it
bunch
because
of yeah. So it almost takes you to that. Oh, are you teaching them how to use a fork and a knife
fork and
and
knife. Yeah.
yeah. I think it was very informal.
Okay.
I think it was more for them to understand that presentation is very important.
Right.
That you could know your subject or you could know the words, but how are you going to communicate it to somebody? And
Right.
uh, so I think it was more like a morale booster for the employees to know that the company is thinking of them as, that they could benefit. So I don't think there was too much pressure on them or on me in that sense. Because I mean, what are the results? It's not like we were going to have an exam.
Right.
So yeah, so
Right. Very true.
I think so that helped ease the pressure and it became a little, more informal. But at the same time, Davars had some sort of structure as to what I had to kind of cover, and that was done.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So the
yeah.
next phase was helping students who were learning Braille. Have I got that right? At least.
No, so this was,
So what happened later? I mean, once pregnancy, child, you took a break. Your
yeah,
child grew up a bit before you decided to get back to some form of working.
yeah. Uh, Actually, we were living in New Bombay, Vashi, which was a
Okay.
very small community place. Everybody kind of knew each other. So
Right.
my son was privileged to study in the same school for 10 years. So I mean, I knew the vice principal, the principal, everybody, and they knew that I was trained to be a teacher. So I
Okay.
would get called, roped in for substitute teaching. Like if a teacher is off, or this. So I would go along with my son, and sometimes be there, and so that used to keep happening. So I would be on call. So the vice principal Vijaya ma'am, who's lovely, lovely person who's been quite an inspiration for me, used to keep calling me, and that was okay because that was quite manageable. So I
Right.
think it was around 2007 when my son was also didn't need me as much, and I was also wondering what is. So they started a national open school in the school. I mean, the same school that he was studying in. It was a wonderful project that they started because a lot of students with learning disabilities get thrown out in the ninth and tenth uh, by the schools because the merit list is going to get affected. So Father Agnell, Father Almeida, shout out to him because under his guidance this was started. Um, so they started classes for ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th because you in the open school system you have the 10th board and the 12th board. So these students were being prepared to pass their 10th and their 12th so that
Okay.
then they could go for vocational. And so again I was called upon to teach accounts and economics to the students. So that was a part-time thing, and yes, that required a little preparation because understanding that these were students with learning challenges, you would have to break down the imagine economics as dry as it is. You'd have to break it down in point form and try to use simpler words. So it required a little bit of work. And mind you, we would have 30 students and 25 students in a class. So, and each student would come up with his own or her own challenges as well. So that was quite a endeavor
Yeah.
by the
They
school.
were
Yeah.
visually impaired or they simply could not see at all. So, what
No,
was
no, no.
the.
So this is sorry.
Just not that part at
Th-
all. Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah, this was students with learning disability. So they
Okay,
had
okay,
issues maybe of dyscalculia or dysgraphia or so these were students who were trying to pass their 10th and 12th. So my stint in Mumbai at that time was with teaching in a school. So
okay,
uh, that was,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
So, these children, what kind of, how would you approach teaching them? Like you said, children with special needs, what would be
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
So, how is it managing a class like that?
So it's like literally unlearning what you've learned, right, in a
Yeah,
traditional
yeah,
classroom, because
right.
you just go there and you give your lecture and some interaction. But in a, for it's like you're a special educator suddenly.
Okay,
So the demand of the job was that you have to be teaching them like a special educator. And uh, we had Shamla, who's a special educator who's working in the school, an amazing person again, who kind of, held our hand when, because we were all mothers. I was one of the few who was a teacher, but then we were all mothers who volunteered there. And
okay,
because we were very invested in this endeavor ourselves. So, uh, it was like you have to it's not like teaching in the traditional sense, not like
that's what.
mainstream, but
Yeah,
it's breaking it down, so it's to simplify. And how much more simple can you make it, so that the goal used to be get I mean the students had to pass their 10th and 12th. That was pretty much the goal, right? And
okay,
it was a
yeah,
party every time we had these
they
results.
managed to
And
do it. Yeah,
yeah, and those 3 years, I mean, I don't think we've had too many students who, couldn't compete, or even if they
wow,
did, we would kind of push them. And the next year, that, because NIOS, the system is wonderful. You can write the exam every 6 months,
okay,
and you can write it one paper at a time, so there's a time. So we would be able to focus, and we would be able to really work with the students to help them pass. So our goal was to get them that 12th standard degree. So
And
I yeah,
it's such a wonderful thing that these children would have been among a very small minority who actually had the access, because I'm saying they were in uh, Vashi, they were in a good school, or at least they were located somewhere close by. But as you move in further, I think a lot of places in India, I doubt if any of these kind of efforts, beyond the point, I'm sure there are schools doing
yeah,
great
yeah,
work in all of
right,
these things, but obviously.
yeah.
And then what would happen? They do their 10th and 12th and then go in for some kind of vocational training.
Vocational training. I think
Okay.
National Open School, the schooling system that the government started I mean, that's been quite the boon for students with learning challenges because you have varied subjects, right? You have home science, you have typing, you have computer science. I mean, a student is not restricted to math or, you know,
Hmm.
uh, I mean, English, for example, I mean, English was the only compulsory subject, but I
Okay.
think that flexibility, right? They had more room to maneuver and figure out what was it they could be good at. And I think even the fact that we would have students who chose home science and they've gone on to, do catering and nutrition. And I think it's a wonderful thing that we have National Open NIOS, the system in place in our country. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Great. So from there, Usha, what happened next, or how long did this continue?
I think about 2.5, 3 years till we
Okay.
moved to Chennai, and Chennai happened. I have to say, I didn't take to Chennai very well because I was leaving Mumbai of 18 years and all my friends. And um Chennai was only home. I mean, in the sense we would come here for holidays to
Right.
see our respective parents. So it took me some time to get used, warm up to Chennai. And uh, I pretty much had nothing to do. So I remember joining yoga class, and then somebody spoke about scribing because I was always interested. So since I'd had that stint with, working with children with learning challenges, I was kind of telling myself that maybe I should be doing, a bachelor's in special education. So I started off scribing. So that's when, I've had opportunities to scribe for visually challenged. And this
How
brought
would that
me,
work? It's almost like dictation. They would tell you and you wrote?
yes, yes, pretty much.
Okay. Okay.
And for somebody who had forgotten how it was to write, to put pen to paper, oh wow, it was my handwriting was all over the place, and I was like, this kid is going to fail because I'm the
Just
one
because
who's the
your
scribe.
handwriting.
Wow, it was,
Okay.
and they would have a lot to say,
Yeah.
and so they don't have visual cues, so they are just dictating, and I am like trying to keep
Trying
up.
to keep
And
up. Okay.
yeah, there was immense pressure on me because I somehow took it personally that if I don't write well, they are failing. That's it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so that was interesting because I mean, the spirit with which they
Yeah.
are able to defy, what odds they have. I mean,
Right.
I think it was see, definitely value adding for me.
Yeah.
I definitely hope they passed because I wrote their papers for them. But I mean, I was connecting, right? Here I was in a new state, and I mean, my social circle was limited to my mom and my mother-in-law, wonderful women, but I missed my friends. And so these were these little connections that I was making that I was beginning to really enjoy. So I used to scribe for children in school. Lady Andal was the school I used to go to. Again, a wonderful school, does a lot of work with NIOS. So I've I've gone to schools, I've gone to colleges, I've written for law students.
Okay.
It's I remember this law student who understood very quickly that my English was good, and his grammar was pretty all over the place, and he was pretty much like, "Madam, I mean, you know how to write, just write it." And so it was hard for me to, use,
The wrong
write
terms.
grammatically wrong, and so it was very amusing. It was fun, and so
Yeah.
if he didn't finish a paper on time, both of us would be panicking. And I remember, asking the person who would come to collect the paper another 10 minutes, and it took me back to my school days.
Your own
And
school.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I'm 10 minutes. Give me 1 minute. I'm just writing this answer. The teacher's just taking the paper away when I'm scratching. So,
It's like the
so it
runner
was
in
fun
cricket.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Used to
exactly.
come and
Yeah,
stand in just for that particular this thing, run back and forth.
absolutely.
Yeah. The
Oh
only
my
thing is you
God.
don't have to
Yeah,
prepare. Or you
yeah,
just go straight to the examination hall and start writing. You become
yeah.
the okay.
And I
But
felt
you've
very
made some
protective. Sorry, sorry.
no, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I think you've made some fairly unusual experiments with because like you said, okay, if you were bored, most people would look at a hobby or look at something like that, but you decided that
Yeah.
no, I'll actually go into something like this, which I
Yeah.
think is fairly unusual, right? Or is it
Um,
something that it's the way you were built?
I find it hard to comment about myself, but
Okay.
that just seemed like the thing I could do at that time. So
Okay.
I got introduced to this organization called Chennai Volunteers, which is being run by Rinku Micheri, again, doing wonderful work, connecting volunteers with, NGOs and people who need volunteers. So through them also, I got a stint to teach English. I used to go to Madras Seva Sadan and other schools that they, had tied up with. Um, so Vidyasagar, which was where I used to go, this I scribe, it was from there. Um, I somehow, I'm going to preempt your question as to why counseling. So when I was in this phase when I was trying to do something, a conversation with a school friend of mine, where she said that she was doing a counseling diploma. And she said that, you know what, uh, uh, this is something that's great. And somehow then I got hooked onto the idea that why not counseling? Maybe not special ed, because I had a lot of my colleagues in, teachers who would say that, hey, you know what, you're somebody the kids find it very easy to access. So they'll come and talk to you, or they would share a lot of stuff that they probably wouldn't share with the other teachers. So I just thought, okay, so why not counseling? I mean,
Yeah.
I like
Before that, I
people.
think Deepa's got
Yeah.
this question saying, how did you come across the scribing opportunity? Or did you answer that? It was something you came up with, or how did you come
Uh,
across the opportunity?
I think I had gone to Vidyasagar to inquire about um, doing bachelor's in special ed. Vidyasagar used to conduct a course at that time. And I remember going and meeting them and checking up about the syllabus and all that, and reading about iScribe there.
Okay.
And then I said, okay, you know what? This till I figure out when I'm going to start, I'm going to use my time because I have a
Right.
lot of free time.
Okay.
So iScribe is something that is being, Vidyasagar is one of those who, they were doing that program. So pretty much that's how I got the idea from there.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then,
yeah.
sorry, I took you back a bit. So you were talking about the
Uh,
counseling bit, jumping into it because a friend told you this is something you should
yeah,
be doing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then you
Um,
took the
so,
course.
yes, so So what happened was Vidyasagar had a course that they had for in 2013. I remember that they had a small 3 months course on counseling with with people with disabilities. So the accent of counseling was on working with people with challenges, and I remember that 3 month course was absolutely fantastic because, the energy of the group, we were about 15 of us. Shivagami, who was conducting the course, was uh, much younger than most of us, but immensely, she had, the way she was able to put across to us what is required. I think I got my uh, taste or idea of what counseling actually demanded of you by just that 3 month course,
Okay.
because it pretty much mentally prepared me that, okay, you know what, this is what you're signing up for if you decide to go down this path. And then I said, okay, if I want to be working, I have to do a post graduation. So hence signed up for that.
Okay. So counseling requires, at least my understanding, it requires drawing people out. It requires a lot of empathy. It
Yeah.
requires great listening skills. What would you, what are your uh, views and impressions of counseling and how it helps people?
So when I did counseling, when I signed up to study for it, I was not aware of how, it exists. I mean, in our country, I mean, we've heard of counseling. I mean, I've seen umpteen Hollywood films where they're talking about therapy and uh, but I never really knew how it was in India, in Chennai. So, as far as I was concerned, I thought that I'm going to be this person who somebody can come and talk to and share. And it'll be that safe space where we can figure out together something that they've been trying to deal on their own. So, as you said, listening, empathy uh, that's part for the course. So, sorry, your question was about what do you
Yeah,
think, how
absolutely.
counseling?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was not aware of how many people would take to counseling or whether there was a, opening for it. Or, it was just something that I thought it aligned with what I could deliver as a person.
Okay.
So I think I just went about it. I don't think I thought too deeply about what value adding I was going to do and all that. I wish I could say something profound here, but nothing. It
No,
was just, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think the most practical people actually bring about the greatest change rather than, saying I'm going to bring about change. And I think
yeah.
the people who change others and who do it actually get down to they don't speak much about it. They sort of deal with it on an ongoing basis. So
Or you
are there
can call
things
it
that
naivete. I mean, I was just naive. Yeah, yeah,
So, what is it like? What is it when you've met your first set of people that you had to counsel, and how did that slowly change, or how did you go about that? Do you remember the early days after? Did you set up a practice, or did you go and work out with people?
yeah,
How exactly did it come about?
yeah. So I got my degree in 2014,
Okay,
and I was still figuring out, how I'm going to start working because nobody knows me. And through my uncle, I got a contact to meet Dr. Vijay Kumar. They have a Dr. Lakshmi Vijay Kumar, Dr. Vinayak. So they're, they run a practice. And through my uncle, I got a chance to go meet them. And I had said, just let me be in your clinic. They are psychiatrists. And I said, just let me be with y'all. And they had two counselors at that time on board. So I said, I just want to observe. I just want to kind of be like an intern, right? And Sir was definitely okay about it. And I remember going to the two counselors and requesting them, can I sit in the sessions? And that was really hard. I think I was able to sit in two sessions only because it's very hard for a client to agree to a third person in the room. I mean, if I was a client, I wouldn't agree to having
Right.
somebody.
Right.
Uh, but I would, and then what they started doing is they started referring clients to me.
Okay.
So the other two counselors were male and I was female. So I think sometimes, women would say, okay, I want to talk to her. So I think by default, I started getting, female clients. And then I think 15 days down the line, sir said that, you know what, why don't you just come here and as and when we get cases, we are going to send them to you. And that's how it started. Uh,
Okay.
Zero experience. I mean, they just took a chance on me, and I have to give them complete credit for just trusting that, okay, here's this person who's going to work with, I mean, their patients, right? It's at the end of the day, people they were treating medically. But yeah, so that is how it started. So I started operating out of their clinic. They operate out of Raju Hospital in T Nagar, and in Santhom they had their own clinic. So I never had my own. I felt very safe there, right? Because uh, here was a place where, I mean, if I had to run for help, and they were. So I never felt the need to have a place of my own.
Separate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So now we'll come back since we're talking of jobs. I thought if you could tell us a little about the kind of issues that people have with jobs and careers and how they, sort of handle them, and what do they, what is it that disturbs them? Is the loss of control over their lives, or do they feel they've not advanced enough? What are the things that people come to you for?
So uh, I had a opportunity to be, I mean, I am an affiliate counselor in the EAP program. That is, a lot of companies give their employees free sessions. So they have the option of using that. And
Right.
about a year into my counseling, I got a chance to do that as well. So I used to have a lot of clients who would come through the corporate system. I would see them in the same clinic only. And uh, I used to always think that since it's coming through corporate side, it will probably have to do a lot with work. And so, coming to the job part challenges, some of the biggest challenges would be interpersonal relationships in office. Always.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, it boils down to us as humans connecting on a, human to human. So invariably, it would be not being able to get along with their bosses, with their peers, a lot of maybe bullying, um, uh, of course, not being able to deliver, if they had deadlines. But I think mostly at the root of it would be these relationships that would impact their emotional state of mind because you have to be balanced to be able to deliver, right? So, um, and automatically, when you're talking about work life balance, their ability to work in the office environment, a lot had to do with their personal space as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I find it very hard to kind of just, say, okay, jobs, these are the issues. But if you started talking to them, you would find that there would be the root cause would
Others.
be somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have had people who've come and we have specifically worked on, okay, how do we be more assertive in office, or how do we draw boundaries, or how am I going to work with this colleague of mine, and how do I? So interpersonal was something, especially in the office environment. We would there were clients who would be very specific about that as well. Yeah, yeah,
No, and like you said, there are so many of these overlaps. Like bullying, you said it continues at the office. We always somehow seem to believe that bullying ends in school, but that is not the case at
yeah,
all. It
yeah.
sort of carries on and all this passive aggressive stuff at times as to how people want to
Absolutely,
get it done, the
absolutely.
sense of
Yeah,
power in the office, you know, all of these
yeah,
are real problems, apart
absolutely.
from,
Yeah,
you know, so like you
yeah.
said. And would you say that on a gender basis, since you are a woman, you met a lot more women than men, or would it, did that
No.
change over time?
Are you talking about the corporate setup?
Yeah, in the corporate setup. Yeah.
No, I think it was a very fair mix. I mean,
Okay.
I've had a lot of women clients as well. So uh, I don't think there was any. I mean, if you're asking me if there were more men than women, no, not at all. I think it would be equally divided. A lot
Okay.
of women employees would also reach out, and through this EAP program, I sometimes used to go for on-site to companies. At that time, Cognizant was one of the clients of our EAP, and I would be asked to handhold when an employee was being terminated.
Okay.
Or in Cognizant, they had this system where a newbie had to write three levels of or some exams, and they had three chances. And a lot of these fresh engineering graduates would come in with, a lot of starry-eyed, okay, I'm in Cognizant, and but they wouldn't be able to clear the exams.
Okay.
And I would be asked to talk to these, to kind of motivate them and tell them, hey, you know what, you have only one more chance, because they were all in that state where they were like, what's the worst? I mean, it's an exam, and then the third attempt they would fail and they would be asked to leave. Literally, I mean, they would be their belongings are given and they're asked clear your desk. And
My God.
yeah, it used to be quite. That was counseling very intensive because you're not prepping for anything. You're
But
literally just, yeah,
this is hard. I mean, you literally have to, it's almost as if, you have to come in and manage an emotionally fraught situation where
absolutely.
the person doesn't have a clue. One is, like you said, they've gotten to Cognizant, so they think they've, or a very large company, and from here on it'll be smooth sailing. And suddenly they're
Yeah.
told it's not. So, how would you manage to sort of handle them? What is it that, if they are asked to leave, then is it that you build courage, or you tell them that this is not the end of the world, or how do you handle situations which are
You have to understand in these situations, I've not had the time to really connect with them. Like in counseling, we talk about that for a session to really work, rapport is very important, right?
right?
Human to human connect. So in these situations, they didn't know. I mean, they just asked to come and talk to me,
Okay.
and that's it. But the fact is that they were young kids, they were scared kids. They were suddenly being told that they are not good enough, that you have this engineering degree and you've told everybody at home that I've joined Cognizant, but suddenly you're being told that, sorry, boss, you're not fit. So I think for me, immediately to calm them down was what was priority, because for them to be able to even take that walk and go outside that gate,
Stuff.
so to give them time to vent, to give them time to speak aloud their fears, their sense of shame or whatever they felt was coming from their parents or from their peers. And these are also many students who had probably not got the job as soon as they had passed out. They probably got it the next year, or so there was so much that was invested for them. And it was also like, oh, I wish I knew this was important. So there was a lot of regret in those. Yeah. So I think it was just to be there for them and understand that while nothing can be done, let's just stay together in this moment, that you're not alone, that I'm here, I'm hearing you, I'm participating in your, in your regret and in your shame, and I'm giving you that space to feel that without questioning and saying, why the hell didn't you study then? What were you doing? What were you thinking? Right? Which would be easy to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So, but to find it in me to say, okay, I'm just going to hear you out. I'm going to give you the space here so that when you step out of the room, you're able to at least hold your head and say, okay, this happened, but now I'm going to move forward.
Okay.
So I think listening, pretty much a lot of listening.
And this is the part of the job, the others are all, the celebrations are all huge, partying, all of that. But
Yeah.
this uh, sense of, am I really good enough? Which,
Oh,
which all of us, I think, at some point in time in our lives are questioning. Though we forget that everyone is going through the same phase, so it's not as if
yeah,
we are in different boats. I mean, we
yeah,
might be
yeah,
different people, and there
yeah,
may be things that we are good at that others are not good at. But all of
right.
that just gets relegated to the background because this becomes the single most important thing. Do you
Yeah,
think that these are massive turning points, or and does it defeat some people whereas it motivates others? Have you seen this effect in two things? One is that I will show you what happens.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Take it as a
that is one
challenge.
response. Yeah, it's a challenge. The
Yeah,
others are
yeah,
broken.
yeah.
So, how do you, in fact, there's a question. I think this is something that you would be,
Okay. Yeah.
thank you, Jesse.
Sometimes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
think we've had a couple of thumbs up from Deepak and Murali because I think they really liked what you were saying over the course of the thing. So I didn't show up these
yeah,
comments at the right
yeah,
time at that point, but I thought you
yeah.
needed to see that.
I appreciate that. Oh, yeah. I don't pressurize myself to detach at all.
Okay,
It is sometimes, I mean, you are privileged to hear somebody's story, and it's hard to be disconnected from that. So in that room, I'm completely connected. I am uh, crying with you. I am feeling hurt with you. I am feeling ashamed along with you. And so it's hard to completely detach. I have had times when I've come home and boiled my guts out. I have, had to take time to collect myself. I have a wonderful friend to whom, I mean, I need to talk to you, and she's also a counselor, so I'm able to discuss without, because
right,
confidentiality being that important. So she is able to understand and to process it sometimes. So it's some cases can be extremely difficult. You have to understand that there is, they call it self of counseling, right? I mean, I am a person who brings my belief and value systems to the table as well. So I can't not be me in that room as well. Uh, so there is also a battle going on in my head when I am trying to understand, hey, you're saying something that doesn't make sense to me at all. And I could have dealt with it very differently, but you haven't. So I'm going to try and understand why you did it that way, right? So uh, it can be sometimes exhausting, but sometimes you get to see shades of people. It can be awe-inspiring because they will be narrating their life stories, and you will be like, "Hey, how are you even alive?
Okay.
I mean, what are you made of?" And I need a little bit of that because yes, they are coming because they are struggling with something, but sometimes it's just to remind them that you've got this, you've done this before. Right now, you're in a cloud, so you need some hand holding in direction. But so I do have to work on myself, and uh, I mean, if I come home, it's not that I can talk to my husband about the work that I do, right? It's not like I can share and say, you know what, today I had a bad day at work, or so there is zero sharing. So I have to kind of figure it out. But I think yeah, uh, probably my personality also is that to some extent I am able to understand that, okay, now that space. And
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
No, I.
can I tell
Yeah.
you? I mean, sorry, I'm interrupting, but I remember the initial, 1 year of counseling, and I used to have clients who would come for sessions and then they would disappear, and then I would be beating myself up. Okay, what did I do? I was really bad, or what, And I remember going to Dr. Vijay Kumar sir and saying, I'm very worried. And he said, see, your job is in that room. After that, what they do with, whatever you have discussed or processed with them is theirs. So if you think, so somewhere when he said that that's not your responsibility, it took such a huge load off. Because then I was able to understand that, here I was thinking I'm this waving this magic wand and saving people's lives, and short of a halo, I thought I was everything. And
Deliverance.
he
Yeah.
absolutely, I you can that can happen sometimes, right? Because you are in that position. So he told me, he said, understand that it's a job. So sometimes you have to tell yourself that you have limitations as a human being, that what you are uh, telling that person, they're not ready to buy at that time.
Huh.
So
It could be as simple as that, or it could be something a lot more complex. Exactly.
a lot
Okay.
more complex. But but I have to do that little introspection and try to think about, okay, is there something I could have done better as a therapist, and learnings from the session. Yeah, yeah,
So one thing is the detachment. The other is counseling emotionally exhausting? You are dealing with a fair amount of conflict. I mean,
yeah,
people who
yeah,
come to you are conflicted.
yes,
And throughout the sessions, you're talking to people who are not in a happy frame of mind.
absolutely. Yeah,
So, does
yeah.
that affect your emotional well being, or have you learned over time to kind of? I'm sorry, I'm going deeply into some of these things
No,
because I
no,
think it's a.
no. So I think self-care is not just for me as a counselor, right? I think self-care is something that as human beings we have to be doing. Um, when I ask clients what comes up for them when I use the word health, immediately everyone is thinking of exercise, and uh, but it's not, right. When we're talking about health, we're talking about emotional, mental, and physical health. So physical is a
Oh,
very
that's a
small
marvelous
portion,
point. That's exactly
very
what
small.
came through.
Yeah, very, very small portion. So when you talk of self-care, I think that goes for anybody in any job, right? Whatever
Right.
challenges you have, whether that's timelines, whether that's physical challenges or emotional, right? So the demands are going to be made on you no matter what.
Yes.
So
That
uh,
brings this up. What do you think of this?
Do you think one? Okay. You know what? It's been suggested that it's better not to do counseling sessions for family and
For
friends.
okay, okay,
So here is what I would, my opinion about it. As a person, as a human being, I understand that I know how to set boundaries with that person and be in that room or in that space with them as a counselor. But if they find it hard, they're never going to feel safe talking to me, which is why we
right.
say that sometimes with family. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's better not to.
why would you have counselors if we could all talk to family
All
and
talk.
friends, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We become that third person who's that safe space where you go to person because you're not able to depend or rely, or you worry that you're hurting them, or you don't want to trouble them, or you don't think that it's okay. So, I mean, so that's why you have counselors, right?
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, come on,
People
we all
already,
have friends and,
we
yeah,
all
and
have friends. People
family.
already, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
So here's that other part, which is that you're working with special children, being a
yeah.
scribe. Has that in some way? Do you think it's very hard for us to answer this question? But I thought, since Deepa's put it out there, what is your
Yeah.
take?
Uh, so, so here is what I've been saying when I said that I feel like an imposter when you call me for a first job podcast. Okay. So, because I have never looked at whatever I've done as a job in that sense. So, it's always been about experiences for me, I think. And I think even to this day, I'm not going to be somebody, if somebody asks me, what do you do? I'd like to quickly. I remember when I was not working, and we used to go to these parties. My husband used to take us these financial, these la di da parties, and there would be a lot of women, obviously, who were having wonderful careers in the finance field, and they were all, and conversations would happen, and then they would be like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I would be like, "Oh, what do I do?" There is no definition, right? And I remember sometimes coming back from these parties saying, this is embarrassing. I'm not sure if I want to go the next time. I have nothing to offer. I have nothing to talk about myself. Till there was one party where this lady, it was like she was a beacon of light because everybody was attracted to her. And she was like the life of the party. And people are asking, so what do you do? And she said, I am the queen of my life. I live a privileged life. I do nothing. And that sat home for me. I said, you know what? It's not about what you do, it's about how you want to define yourself. So
Wow,
I think that day, I mean, a little bit of a baggage kind of was dropped.
lifted.
Yeah, lifted. So I don't think I take myself too seriously to say, okay, so I wouldn't, I mean, if you asked me and I'm introducing, I would never tell you what I do unless you ask me, so what do you do?
Okay.
So I find it still a bit hard to, the imposter still shows up quite a bit. So
No,
yeah,
and that's the thing I find strange, Usha, that you being in advertising, we should be the biggest imposters of all.
yeah. Oh yeah, you
But
sell and we buy. Yeah, yeah,
but as far as we're concerned, I think it's something that we learn. It's been a wonderful conversation with you, Usha, because
yeah,
I thought that it's the beginning which will be the part that defines you. But I think
right.
you grew into the job, and everything from teaching accounts to special children to
Yeah,
scribing for the blind, and then this moment when you said that I'll do counseling and all those sessions that you talk about. I think I have a far I think you do a very important bit of helping people understand. Like you said, you
yeah,
define, and that's a very, very important statement. You define who
yeah,
you are and how your life evolves.
yeah.
So, thank you for coming on the show. I didn't
It's
realize
such
an
a
hour passed.
privilege. Yeah.
It's my privilege, Usha,
Yeah. I'm
because
glad
I
to
think
be,
we had a
one of the initial people to be called to the
yeah,
podcast. And
and I
maybe
hope
yeah,
uh,
I'm going to start telling people, this is the job that I do.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm
Connecting with
sure a
people.
lot of
Yeah.
young people will take heart from whatever you've just said, because I think that's another important point, that the company brings in a counselor rather than somebody just saying, okay, here's your letter, leave. There's at
Yeah.
least that half an hour. It's like a buffer
Right.
zone,
Absolutely. Yeah.
which I think is
Yeah.
marvelous. Thank you.
Yeah.
And on
Awesome.
that
So
note,
nice to talk to you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
You take care.
Okay.
Bye.